Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 2, and in this lesson we are going to focus on the customer as I have named it, and this comes after we have been through the introduction to uh, service marketing, and to some of you introduction to customer service, and we have seen some of the most important terms in customer service and also in service marketing. And that brings us to lesson 2, which is going to be about a customer. Basically, I named it Focus on the Customer. We shall see why as we move forward. In this lesson, we are going to be guided by some of the subtopics, as you can see there. We are going to see the gap model of service quality. We are going to see what is it and why is it used. So don't worry if this is a complete new thing to you. We will describe it together. We are going to see the concept of the zone of tolerance. Also, don't worry if this is new. We are going to explore and we are going to understand what is it basically and why is it important. We are going to see customer expectations of services and also customer perception of services. And so we will learn about the gap model, as I said, and its components. And the most important mode of this module is the customer gap. That's why we named it Focus on the Customer, which is basically the difference between what customers expect from a service and what they actually perceive or experience or receive. And so in simple terms, what customers think should happen and what customers feel actually happened. And so the difference between the two, that is expectations and perceptions, is what brings what we call customer gap. And if the gap is large, that means customer satisfaction is low. But if the gap is small, then customers are more satisfied. So this is what we are going to explore in this lesson. And before we move to the central part of this lesson, let us first define what is service quality. Let us describe it and also see the dimensions of service quality. In the previous lesson, we explored the characteristics of a service, not service quality. And today I feel there's a need to at least know what is service quality. This is probably the first time some of you come across it. I don't believe so to many of you, but it could be the first time. So what is service quality and what are the dimensions of service quality? So service quality has been defined in different ways, and I have below 4 ways in which service quality has been defined. The first one, service quality as perceived by customers, is the extent of discrepancy between customer expectations or desires and their perceptions. And that difference between what they expect and what they perceive is what is termed as service quality. Another definition says it is whatever customer says it is, and the quality of product or service is whatever the customer perceives it to be. Well, to some degrees, this can be true, and we shall see later as to why. Another one says customer service is the delivery of excellent or superior service that is relative to what customers expect. And the last one is, as perceived by customer, is the result of comparison between expectations of the customers and his or her real life experiences. So if you take a look at these definitions, you will end up defining service quality as simply difference between what customers perceive and what customers expect. So the difference between their expectations and their perceptions is what creates service quality. Now, the principles and practices as applied to goods quality, or I would say tangible goods quality, are not sufficient for service quality. And this is because of some basic differences between goods and services with regard to how service is produced, consumed, and evaluated. We have seen the characteristics of a service in the previous lesson. If you haven't, please go through them. You can simply pull out that lesson in the Google Classroom. And so it is very important to understand those distinctive characteristics of a service, because then we cannot apply the same principles that we apply for production, consumption, and also evaluation of goods to services. Now, after seeing the definition of service quality, let us move to the dimensions of service quality. There are 5 dimensions. These are what customers consider when they are evaluating service quality. And so we have reliability, and this is simply organization's ability to deliver its promises consistently and without errors or variations. It reflects the stability, also predictability of the service. And so customers judge reliability by how well the service provider performs core tasks, especially those that matter most to them. Some of the most important things to consider in reliability is consistency, accuracy, dependability, and also performance standard. So it matters because customers place high value on reliability, because it reduces uncertainties. So in service marketing theory, reliability is the dimension with the strongest link to customer satisfaction. The second one is responsiveness. This one is organizations' speed or willingness and also enthusiasm in helping customers. It emphasizes time, which is crucial because most services are time sensitive. Some of the most important things here are issues like promptness in handling of customer requests, short waiting times, and so we are going to see strategies like queue management here. Also, quick response to problems or emergencies. And some services influence how customers react, or how customers think of how quickly are you going to respond to their problems or emergency. Also, staff who show readiness and energy in serving customers. So responsiveness shapes first impression in that sense, and it reduces frustrations. It is especially important in high contact services like hospitals, hotels, banks, because delay or slow staff are often interpreted as poor service, even when the elements are good. I was explaining to my previous class that the frontline employees can just ruin the whole experience of a service, even if the service itself is you could go to a bank and face challenges of long waiting for service, and simply that may lead to negative thoughts and dissatisfactions on that particular service. The third one is assurance, which is I'll say competence, courtesy, and professionalism, and also credibility of employees. It focuses on how service providers create a sense of trust, safety, and confidence among customers. And it is important in services that involve some degree of risk, such as financial services and also healthcare, even auto repair or tourism activities. So the key elements here are employee expertise and professionalism, and we are going to see how important it is to conduct regular training on employees. There's also polite and respectful communication. Again, it has to do with employees. There's also confidence and clarity, and safety standards, and also ethical behaviors. So customers often lack the technical knowledge to evaluate service outcomes themselves, and therefore they rely on the behavior and communication of employees to feel assured. Basically, this is what this dimension is about. So the more they are satisfied with the behavior and how employees communicate, how confident they are, they feel safe. They feel like this service is excellent or is good. The fourth one is empathy. Empathy is the ability to see customers as individuals, but also understand their personal needs and provide tailored attention. And it reflects emotional intelligence and human side of service. People say it's like putting yourself in the customer's shoes. So here is most important things are personalized services, but also staff who listen and show understanding, and recognizing customers and their preferences individually, but also flexibility to adjust the service to customer needs. Empathy builds emotional connection and loyalty. Here's where there's emotional connection and loyalty, because customers stay loyal to companies that make them feel valued, So it is important in service sectors or industries or businesses such as tourism and hospitality, where experience and personal comfort are the central focus. The last one is tangibles. That is physical evidence. We shall see what is physical evidence, don't worry. Because services are intangible, so customers judge quality through the visible cues, in the environment and the appearance of the personnel or the front office, those, contact employees. So here key elements are, building design, decor, cleanness, equipment quality, and also modernity, staff appearance and professionalism. Some of written materials also are physical evidence, such as brochures, signage, things like menus, websites, applications. All these are physical evidence. So this creates a first impression before the actual service interaction begins. They shape expectations and communicate the organization's commitment to quality. You expect, let's say you're going to a clinic, you expect the clinic to be clean, to have a clean waiting room, modern equipment, to have to be organized, to be quiet. And if you find let's say a clinic which is not very clean or not clean at all, you tend to feel uncomfortable, and it doesn't give you a sense that this is the service or this is the place I should be, this is the service I should receive, or I believe you have seen some of the places where services are provided, banks, hospitals, hotels. So all the tangible cues you can see. Customers use those to evaluate the service quality of that particular place. So that is why you see uniforms in some organizations. That is why you see some high level of cleanness in many hotels. This is why you see the ambience well, decorated or designed. All these influences how customers evaluate service quality. And that makes the 5 dimensions of the service quality. And the 5 dimensions collectively describe how customers evaluate service quality. And this helps organizations identify strengths, weaknesses, and guide strategies for improving service performance. Service quality is key differentiator for any customer when he or she has to make a choice between different organizations. And high service standards create customer satisfaction and loyalty, and therefore results into a long relationship. And on the other hand, a low level of service quality will force the customers to look for alternative, and organization might lose these customers. After seeing the dimensions of service quality, let us see the factors influencing service quality, which are categorized into 2, that is external to customer and internal to customer. And under the external to customers, we have 3. The first one is word of mouth. This is information customers hear from friends, from family, from other customers, and also from online reviews. Today, the advancement of technology leads to so much online reviews, and customers go through that. Another one is external communication, which are messages communicated by the company, such as advertising, promises on brochures, websites, social media. So the more the company promises, the higher the expectations. Another one is situational factors. Customers may be influenced to expect a particular service because of a certain situation, let's say an emergency. The other category is internal to customers. This include past experience. This is what the customer has experienced before. It could be with the same service provider or could be with the similar service. And the last one is personal needs. This is customers' own preferences, desires, priorities. All these can influence customer or service quality. Well, having said that, I believe now you have a picture of what customer expectations and perceptions are. And in one of my previous classes, I asked some of you what comes first between customer expectations and customer perceptions, and nearly all of you told me that customer perceptions comes first before service encounter, which is not the case, because customers anticipate. Expectation is what customers anticipate or believe they will receive from a service product. And so they are formed based on past experiences, as we have seen, factors in the previous slide, marketing communication, word of mouth, personal needs. So customers might expect, for example, prompt service, high quality, reliability, and certain level of empathy and assurance, depending on the nature of the service they are out to receive. On the other hand, perception is customers' view of the actual service or product after they have received it. So you cannot have perception before expectations. I think I should repeat this. You cannot have perceptions before expectations. And so after they have received, the view is what we call perception. It is how they perceive the quality and value of what is delivered to them. And customer perception can differ significantly from customer expectations due to various reasons, including delivery, experience, and the fulfillment of promises made by the company. And so this lesson highlights the importance of alignment between expectation and perception, and this will ensure satisfaction and loyalty, and understanding and managing the gap between what customers expect and perceive is crucial for any business to enhance their service quality and a competitive edge. So let us now, I want you to take a look at the diagram there, which is a customer's assessment of service quality. The diagram shows how customers judge the quality of a service using the circle model by Parasuraman and others. It illustrates what shapes customer expectations, what shapes customer perception, and how service quality is ultimately assessed. If you take a look at the diagram, you'll see factors that influence customer expectations at the top. The word of mouth, personal needs, past experience, but also external communication. And at the center of it, you see expected service. This box represents what the customer thinks should happen based on the above 4 factors. And at the bottom, you see perceived service, which is what customer believes actually did happen. So during the whole service experience, this one. And then on the side, you have dimensions of service quality or self-call. And it is the 5 dimensions that we've just gone through: the tangibles, reliability, responsiveness, assurance, and empathy. So, on the other hand, we have perceived service quality. This is like a final judgment of service quality. It is based on the comparison between expected service and perceived service. And if perceived service is greater or greater than expected service, then the service quality is high. But if the perceived service is less than expected service, then the service quality is low. And the difference between the two is called customer gap. So in summary, the table shows what forms customer expectations, what forms customer perceptions, how the SafeCore or service quality dimensions shape service experience, and also how customer evaluate service quality by comparing expectations and perception. And now let us proceed to the gap model of service quality as it was put forward by Parasuraman and others. And I will not explain anything here because we have explained and defined most of this in the previous slides or even in the previous lessons. And so let's just move to seeing what is the gap all about. Now, some of you might ask, what is gap model? Also called service quality gap model or SafeCore model. So it is a framework that is used to understand why service quality fail and how organization can improve. And it identifies gaps or mismatches between expectations and or the actual service delivered. So these gaps help organization pinpoint where service quality breaks down, and it is called the gap model because it focuses on um, 5 specific gaps that cause poor service quality. Each gap represents difference or a gap between what customers expect, what companies think customers expect, how service is designed, how service is delivered. And so the term gap highlights the discrepancies that reduce satisfaction. All right, so moving on to the gaps. The first one is not knowing what customers expect, also known as the knowledge gap. The second one is the standard gap. The third one is delivery gap. And the fourth is the communication gap. And the fifth is the customer gap or the perception gap, which we are not going through it so much. Let's just go through the 4 gaps. Let us now explore the gaps. The first one is the knowledge gap, which is caused by inadequate market research, lack of upward communication, insufficient relationship focus, and inadequate service recovery. So when the company does not collect enough information about customer needs, expectation, and preferences, the situation leaves management guessing instead of making informed decision. And sometimes the company may conduct research but does not address important service issues such as customer satisfaction, service failures, or service delivery performance. And even when research is done, managers fail to use findings to improve service. And so the data is collected but ignored or misunderstood or not applied. And lack of upward communication happens when managers rarely meet customers direct. We know this is very common. They therefore do not hear complaints, suggestions, or experience at first hand. And so everything is left to the frontline employees, and they do not communicate customer issues to managers, or managers do not listen. So this stops important information from moving upward. And sometimes there are too many layers between contact employees and the management. This is also very common. There are many supervisors or departments between frontline staff and top management, and therefore this creates delays or distortion or loss of customer information before it reaches decision makers or reaches the managers. But also there's insufficient relationship focus because the company treats all customers the same instead of grouping them based on needs, values, preferences, and this makes it hard to serve them effectively. And sometimes the company cares only about uh, completing a sale instead of building long-term relationships, loyalty. And sometimes the company focuses on attracting new customers instead of keeping existing loyal customers. So this can cause loyal customers to feel ignored or undervalued. And there's also inadequate service recovery, whereby companies do not listen to or respond properly to customer complaints. This makes customer feel unvalued, or ignored. And when customer service failure occurs, the company does not compensate, does not apologize, does not fix, nothing. So this worsens customer dissatisfactions. But there's no appropriate recovery mechanism in place for service failure. There's no clear system like a procedure, a policy, there's no staff training for handling service failures. So employees may not know what to do when things go wrong. And this leads to inconsistency or poor service recovery. The second one is the standard gap, which is caused by poor service design, absence of customer-driven standards, and also inappropriate physical evidence and service escapes. So companies do not follow a structured method when creating new services. So there's no step-by-step planning, there's no testing, there's no evaluation. And as a result, services are poorly designed, they are inconsistent, or fail to meet customer needs. And in some situations, service is not clearly described or documented. So employees are unsure of what exactly needs to be done, by who and how. And so it leads to confusion and mistakes and poor service delivery. And also, the service does not match the company's brand positioning or strategy. If a company, for example, positions itself as fast and efficient, but the service design is slow or complicated, obviously the customers will be dissatisfied. There's also lack of driven standards. Companies set its service standard based on internal convenience instead of customer expectation. In other words, standards are built around what is easy for the organization and not what the customer need. So there's no proper management of service process. Activities are not monitored, or controlled to ensure they meet customer requirements. And this leads to inconsistency in service quality. There's also absence of formal process for settling service quality goals. Some organizations have no structured way of setting service quality targets, and so employees do not know the expected performance level, such as response time, reliability standards, complaint handling, speed. So without goals, quality is just very unpredictable. Another one is failure to develop tangibles in line with customer expectations. This is the facilities, equipment, staff appearance do not match what customers expect. So if the tangibles, what customers see is maybe dirty or old, or unprofessional, then customers lose confidence. And there's also a servicescape design that does not meet customer and employee needs, as servicescape is the physical environment where the service is being delivered. So if this place is poorly designed, customers feel uncomfortable. Employees struggle to perform in such environment. It does not only affect the customer in this case. And also there's inadequate maintenance and updating the servicescape. The environment is not properly maintained or updated. And so it may result to broken equipment, for example, outdated decor, dirty facilities. Customers perceives the service as low quality and unpredictable. Take a look, or an example of you boarding a bus, which is old, dirty, you don't feel, you don't feel comfortable. You just feel the whole the whole quality is very low. The third one is delivery gap, which is caused by human resource policies, failure to match supply and demand, customers not fulfilling their roles, and also problems with service intermediaries. And so we have insufficient recruitment. Sometimes some organizations do not hire enough staff or do not hire people with the right skills and attitudes. So this leads to employees overload, poor service, and inconsistent performance. But there's also an issue of role ambiguity or role conflict. Employees are not sure about their duties, responsibilities, or performance expectations, and so there's a confusion. And sometimes they face conflicting demand, for example, trying to follow company rules while also trying to satisfy customers. So this creates stress, and it definitely reduces service quality. The other one is poor employee or technology job fit. So here, with the advancement of technology, technology does not match the skill of employees or needs of their jobs. So the systems can be too complex for staff. This is very common, actually. Slow or outdated computers. So this slow down service and frustrate employees and customers. Another reason is inappropriate evaluation and compensation systems. Sometimes companies measures or rewards wrong things. For example, rewarding speed instead of accuracy. Evaluating employees only by sales and not by service quality. This is very common. And well, most companies, for example, the telecommunication companies, they would aim for more sales, like just sell as much as you can, but they don't care about service quality. And also misalignment causes poor behavior and low quality service. Another reason is lack of empowerment. So employees are not given authority to solve problems or make decisions, so they feel powerless. They feel unsupported. Teamwork becomes very weak, and this causing slow service, poor coordination, and a lot of errors. There's also a failure to smooth peak and values of demand. The business may sometimes fail to manage demand fluctuation. For example, there are times that a service is needed mostly more than certain times, and so during peak times you might find there's long waits or poor service, and then during low periods there's sort of wasted capacity. So simply poor demand management lowers overall service quality. We shall see this in the managing capacity and demand. But another reason is inappropriate customer mix. Sometimes organizations attract customers who do not match its target market or service ability. And so there's too many difficult, incompatible, or high maintenance customers. And so this customer may cause stress for employees, they may cause service delays, they may lower satisfaction for other customers. Another reason is overall reliance on price, which is very common actually. You see when service demand is high, the prices go high, but it's quite dangerous, I would say. So when company uses only price discount or price increase to control demand, this is not effective because it ignores other tools, um, like reservations, scheduling, or differentiated service levels. Another reason is customer lack their uh, fail to perform their responsibilities, and this is very common also. Customers do not understand what they need to do during the service. Example, they might be required to prepare some documents, and maybe follow certain procedures or providing necessary information. So if they fail to do so, this service cannot be delivered fully, and obviously it reduces quality. Another one is customers negatively impact each other. They behavior may affect, and this reduces the overall service experience. Then we have channel conflict over objectives and performance. Different service partners pursue different goals, and so there's misalignment, which leads to inconsistent service and conflict over performance and expectations. And sometimes these channels conflict over cost reward. They disagree about who should bear the cost, how revenue should be shared, who should be rewarded. So these disputes damage cooperation and reduce service quality. There's also difficulty controlling quality and consistency. So when many people or partners deliver the service, quality varies. Now we're talking about people like agents, So it varies across locations, employees, even time. And so any inconsistent in service delivery leads to poor quality and customer dissatisfaction. And the last one, there's a tension between empowerment and control. Organizations want employees to be empowered to solve problems, but also want to control process. And so this creates tensions, too much control, so employees feels very restricted, but too much empowerment there's a risk of inconsistency. So finding balance is also quite difficult. And another one is communication gap, which is caused by lack of integrated service marketing communication, ineffective management of customer expectations, inadequate horizontal communication, and also inappropriate pricing. Price communicates. All right, so here the company treats each advertisement or social media post or brochure as separate instead of ensuring a consistent message. So this leads to mixed signals, confusing customers about what to expect. But also there's interactive marketing, which is communication that happens during customer interaction, such as employee behavior, customer service interactions, online chats. So if this is not included in the communication plan, the company may promise one thing in the art, but deliver something different from what they have had in the real interaction. There's also absence of strong internal marketing program, training, motivations, informing employees so they can deliver the promised service. So if internal market is weak, employees are unaware, they fail to deliver according to the expectations, and create mismatch between promises and performance. But there's also not managing customer expectation through all forms of communication. Here, the company does not control what customers expect based on advertising, sales messages, website information, and if expectations become too high or unrealistic, customers will be disappointed. And we also have not adequately, not enough education to customers. So customers do not understand how the service works. They don't know what to do or what to process, so this causes problems such as delay, misunderstandings, unmet expectations. There's also insufficient communication between sales and operations. Here, the sales staff promises service to attract customers, but operation staffs are the ones who must deliver it. So if they don't communicate, sales may overpromise, and operations cannot meet the promises. You see, there's also insufficient communication between advertising and operations. So definitely all these miscommunications lead to customer disappointment. There's an issue of policies and procedures where customers may receive excellent service in one branch and poor service in another. So this inconsistency damages trust. It damages the brand image, and others. And also the issues of price. So when prices are high, customers expect premium quality. they expect superior performance, high reliability, So if service does not match these expectations, customers feel dissatisfied. So prices may be set too high or too low relative to what customer believe the service is worth. So oftenly, and obviously, too high prices, customer may feel, cheated, and too low, customers question quality or sustainability. And so, if price does not match perceived value, satisfaction declines. The figure you see here is the expansion of the previous one. and it explains that service quality is determined by the gap between customer expectation and perception. So when organizations fail to understand, design, deliver, and communicate services properly, service quality gaps emerge and therefore leading to customer dissatisfaction. And if you can see, there's a customer side of the model, and the figure shows that customer expectations are shaped by three main factors, as you can see there at the top. That is word of mouth, personal needs, and past experience. And collectively, these factors form what we call expected service. But on the other hand, perceived service, this is now how customers evaluate the service after experiencing it, is subject and is based on actual interaction with employees, with systems or facilities. And then we have between expected service and perceived service gap 5, which is the customer gap, which is the most critical gap. So gap 5 is simply expected service minus perceived service. So this is the ultimate measure of service quality. And if perceived service meet or exceed expectations, it leads to satisfaction, as I said earlier. And if perceived service falls below expectation, it causes dissatisfaction. So all other gaps in the organization contributes to gap 5. And then on this company side, at the lower part of the figure, explain internal organization gap that cause the customer gap. Now we see the knowledge gap, which I've explained earlier, the policy gap or a standard gap, delivery gap, and also the communication gap. So simply, the model works as a system, and customer expectation flow downward into the organization, as you can see, and the service is designed, delivered, and communicated upward back to the customer. And any failure at one stage creates a gap that widens gap 5, which is the customer gap. So here we take note that service quality problems are not random. They result from identifiable gaps within the organization. So by identifying and closing gap 1 to 4, organizations can actually reduce gap 5 and improve customer satisfaction. So the figure provides a framework for service quality problems, but links customer perception with managerial actions. It also forms the foundation for core dimension, or the foundation for service quality dimensions, which we mentioned, we explained earlier: reliability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy, and tangibility. So having said that, now let us move on to another part of our lecture, which is the zone of tolerance. So services are heterogeneous, as we explained in the very first lesson, and performance may vary across providers, across employees, and they could be from the same provider and even with the same service employees. So the extent to which customers recognize these variations and are willing to accept is called the zone of tolerance. So the zone of tolerance simply explains that customers do not evaluate service using a single fixed standard. Instead, they have a range of acceptable performance, and this range expands or contracts depending on context, experience, and personal factors. So organization therefore should aim to deliver service consistently above what we call adequate service. We shall see what it is, and manage promises carefully to avoid narrowing the zone unrealistically. So in essence, the zone of tolerance highlights that service quality is judged flexibly, and effective service management depends on understanding and managing this range rather than targeting a single expectation level. And so we see that if service drops below adequate service, which is the minimum level considered acceptable, customers will be frustrated and their satisfaction with the company will be undermined. But if service performance is higher than the zone of tolerance at the top end, where performance exceeds desired service, customers will be very pleased and probably quite surprised as well. We shall see a figure, I think, after this slide. So you might consider the zone of tolerance as the range or a window in which customers do not particularly notice service performance. When it falls outside the range, either very low or very high, the service gets the customer's attention in either positive or negative way. And I try to put one example. You can always go through it. Okay, so this is probably the last figure and it explains the factors that shape customers' service expectation, and specifically how desired service and adequate service and predicted service and the zone of tolerance are formed and related to each other. So first, it explains the desired service. I believe you can see that one. So desired service represents the level of service customers hope to receive, what they believe a service provider should deliver under ideal condition. So factors that influence desired service, they are on the left. I believe you can see those. Lasting service intensifiers. These are like stable factors that permanently raise expectations. They include strong personal values, long-term relationship with service providers, and also dependence of on a particular service. We have personal needs. These are individual, physical, psychological, and social needs. Can be safety, convenience, comfort. And then we have adequate service at the bottom, at the middle, bottom. This refers to the minimum acceptable level of service customers are willing to tolerate. And there are factors there that influence adequate service, and you can see temporary service intensifiers. These are short-term factors such as emergency, time, pressure, or occasion as special occasion. Then we have perceived service alternatives. These are customers' perception of available alternative. maybe could be fewer alternatives, and therefore this lowers minimum expectations. Then we have a self-perceived service role. This is the extent to which customers believe they are responsible for a service outcome. And also situational factors. These are conditions that are beyond the provider's control, like weather, for example, system failures. I'm not sure if system failures are beyond are beyond service providers control, but it could be sometimes when the internet cuts, and then they could be beyond their control. So these factors can raise or lower the minimum acceptable service level. And then we have the zone of tolerance. That is the shaded area between desired service and adequate service, and it represents the range of service performance customers consider acceptable. And then it shows service within this zone is usually acceptable without strong satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And so basically that is the concept behind the zone of tolerance. Then we have predicted services on the right bottom. This is what customers realistically expect will happen in a specific service encounter. And then we have factors that influence predicted service. On the right, we have explicit service promises. This is things like advertising, social media, whatever promises that comes from the company to the customers. Then we have implicit service promises such as price, brand image, or physical evidence, and there's a word of mouth communication and past experience. So predicted service typically falls within the zone of tolerance and strongly influence how customers judge the actual service performance. And so we see that customers compare perceived service with predicted service, not only with desired service. So if perceived service exceed desired service, it leads to delight. If it falls within the zone, then it is considered acceptable. But if it falls below the adequate service, it causes dissatisfaction. So to summarize, the zone of tolerance explain that customers do not evaluate service using a single fixed standard, and instead they have a range of acceptable performance which expands or contracts depending on context, experience, or personal factors. So organization, you should aim to deliver service consistently above adequate service, manage promises carefully to avoid narrowing the zone unrealistically, and understand which factors raise or lower customer tolerance. And that is all about the zone of tolerance. And as we move towards the end of this lesson, I have kept the definitions. This one is for adequate service. You may want to refer to it anytime you're going through this. And also desired service. So these two can be very useful if you want to expand your knowledge on what is adequate service or what is desired service. But I believe the diagram and the explanation I have given in the diagram have really answered a lot of questions. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And this is the end of lesson 2, which was about the customer. And it is very important for organizations and even academicians, because it helps organizations to understand how customers form expectations. It identifies the root causes of service quality problems. It aligns service design, delivery, and communication. And it measures and manages the zone of tolerance. We've just spoken about it. It builds customer satisfaction. It avoids over-promising. Also helps in better training of employees, and it will also help in prioritizing resources, both human and financial. Also helps to compete effectively, and we all know that the service industry is very competitive and dynamic. And lastly, it helps in improvement and customer-centered thinking. Thank you very much for listening. I encourage you to ask questions, comments, anything, and I wish you all the best in bridging the gaps or reducing the gaps, because that's what we actually have to do together as a class. So I wish you all the best, and please welcome for any comments or questions. Good luck.